This week on Mutant Watch, we're talking about at least 3 of our favorite mutants in the first issue of X-Men Red, written by Ewing with art by Stefano Caselli, if I'm not wrong. And I didn't remember the colorist, but the letters are by Ariana Maher, who's like a big fan of this show.
And we are big fans of her.
And we are big fans of her, always. So we're really excited to talk about this issue. We have with us today a guest, Celise. The handle is in the description of the thing, and it will also be in the screen shortly. He's part of the Data podcast, if I'm not wrong, the Data cast.
Datacast, yeah.
Datacast, yeah. And also has written for Comic Book Herald and for Panel X Panel. And we're gonna talk X-Men Red today. I hope you're all ready. We're gonna have a lot of feelings and yeah, a lot of feelings.
This week on Mutant Watch.
Okay, so let's get right into it. I think we will go over the issue. Like, if you want to help me with that, Gabriel, because I don't remember like the chronological thing. I remember the moments that I went almost crying, but not the chronological order.
Let me see. Okay, so as best as I can chronologically, we have Storm sitting in on the council to place a vote or run the vote about whether or not Arakko should move to... whether or not Arakko should go to war with Ameth and follow after Genesis, who ran off there with Apocalypse and co. And we got Iska kind of pushing her buttons about whether or not, the vote really matters or if it's just a Storm show. Meanwhile, you have Magneto, who has recently resigned from the Quiet Council, who's just like monologuing at a fisherman in the middle of nowhere and building castles like Magneto does. And then, the third level of it is we also got Sunspot, who is trying to bring Disco to Arakko. And he is interrupted by a very angry power, big ego Vulcan. And Thunderbird makes an appearance, which is also awesome, as well as the deliciously evil Abigail Brand.
Yeah, okay. This book continues like after the events of S.W.O.R.D. I think that I really like for starting the conversation is that it doesn't like exactly, you don't need to like follow S.W.O.R.D. very closely to get into the book. It has some threads from it, especially the Abigail Brand stuff, but it's mostly like setting this new world of Arakko. And so I guess we can go first over Storm and her role in this council and her issues at the beginning of the issue. We can maybe start discussing her, like for getting into it of the characters.
Yeah. Before we do that, I do want to say I agree that I don't think it's necessary to read S.W.O.R.D. beforehand. I think it does enrich the experience. What I would actually say it would be a better primer would actually be Immortal X-Men. Because I did read it directly before I read X-Men Red, and it really summed up the important pieces of S.W.O.R.D. that are carried over into Red X-Men Red. So I think that actually would be a better, if you don't want to read the full run of S.W.O.R.D., just picking up Immortal X-Men to kind of get you ready for it. Though you should just read S.W.O.R.D., it's awesome.
So what do you both think about, let's start with Storm. I guess this book, because it's very character focused, it's better to like, at least I read it as very character focused. It's better to go over its character, and then we can get like a big impression of what probably could happen next.
Should I go first or?
Go for it.
All right. I would say it definitely does try to pull back because S.W.O.R.D had a pretty mammoth cast even from issue 1, which is part of the fun. It's an organization, but it also like I love it, but it also kind of ran away with itself because it got caught between so many events. But in this case, you pull back, you start out with a fresh new cast for the most part, just a few people comparatively, Magneto, Storm, and Sunspot, and a bit of Brandon, Vulcan, and Thunderbird, and you're good. Like, you get an idea of who the players are, what the stakes are, and where you're going and why it matters that the X-Men even need to be on Mars at all if it's technically owned by Arakko now. I liked it a lot in that respect, especially because I feel like Storm as the Regent of Soul has been sort of underplayed. She just shows up for council scenes and sometimes sitting on the big X throne, but otherwise it's like you don't get a sense of what the stakes are, and now you know. That's at least my first impression off of it.
Yeah, I definitely do agree. I think that in the Krakoan era, Storm has been, as a whole, very minimized. She was in Marauders, but she, aside from the emotional stuff when Kate Pride died, she didn't really do much. And having a former queen, a former goddess in Krakoa and doing nothing was a bit of a weird choice. So I am glad to see her. This is not just her stepping into the role, because we got that when she became Regent of Soul, but it's now how she's stepping into that and what that role is going to look like.
Yeah, I'm similarly intrigued. I'm especially like pleased with the ending, which I guess we'll talk about later, with what Storm does in the ending. I'm like intrigued also by the way that the book is telling us about like the weight that this is carrying on Storm's shoulder, because like and Celeste said this before we went live, that she's you like Ororo is not used to like being like so the queen, the regent, like being in a position of power, and she approaches things more from a position of like collaboration. So like seeing her in a role that is like it demands that of her is very interesting, because it's very clear that this is something that she really wants to do. Wait, searching for the words. That she really wants to take place on. Like she really wants to like be into with the other mutants of Arakko, because she wants to understand like their she wants to be one of them, and that's clear that during S.W.O.R.D, it's clear that she's accepted by them, but also that there's like this whole like I don't know how to say this, but like it's very interesting how it kind of plays into like a cultural thing, like I'm not sure if like a mutant cultural thing, but like a thing of like the culture of Arakko and how that challenged Storm, if that makes sense. I think it's very interesting. I think it's a really like compelling narrative that I can't wait to see like how that plays into her own like insecurities. And
I was just gonna say, kind of going off that with the culture of Arakko, we spoke a little bit before we went live about the fight that she got the council seat and how it is both a plot point and a metaphor. And
yeah.
I think it very much shows how Storm fits into this culture. From the get-go, Storm has always been a survivor. Storm has been a fighter. She has shown on many occasions that she can be ruthless, but she also has heart to her as well. That she, like you said, she wants to rule these people, not even rule, she wants to work with these people from a place of empathy and compassion. But the culture of Arakko is strength, and that is something that she has. Um, so now she's stuck trying to figure out who she is at her core, and has she let herself been distracted from who she once was by the power of being an X-Men and one-time queen of Wakanda, distracted by the crowns and the thrones.
Yeah, I think she has been. One of the things that they try to make a point of is the whole Regent of Soul thing. She doesn't like it because it puts her above these people, and they sort of resent it because she really is just an outsider telling them what to do to a certain extent, which is, given how they spent centuries, thousands of years fighting and dying for their freedom against Amenth, it makes sense that they wouldn't necessarily appreciate her trying to change them in a way beyond what they're willing to do. So her like choosing consciously to reject like imposing her will on them and instead trying to change them by being one of them entirely, it feels truer to Storm than we've had in a while. Because while the Regent of Soul thing is cool, it also requires you to like deal with the sort of subtext that she and Krakoa by extension are above them, which isn't necessarily comfortable.
Yeah.
And there's also a dialogue between Storm and Brand where they're talking about the move to Earth. Sorry, to Mars. And Storm is using very like neutral words about what they did to Mars, well, rather positive terms, like they resurrected it, where Brand is wording it very much as they're the colonizers of Mars. And I can also see that comparison to what Storm is doing with the Arakan people. She is going in and she's trying to change them to a people of peace, which is not what they're who they are. So he's like she's trying to essentially convert them to the Krakoan way of thinking. And it is a very interesting dynamic, and I'm a little bit bitter that it is Brand of all people who is bringing it up.
To be fair, it's also intentionally meant to be like this very deliberately evocative, and in Brand's part, she's very, what's the word, like she's always playing an angle. She's a spook, a spy. Like she's always looking for the worst interpretation of something that she can turn to her advantage. And while there might be like kernels of truth in what she says, it's also to make this point of how she can control it, why she's the best person to be in charge and not necessarily Storm. Because for Storm, she can relate to these people in certain ways, even if she isn't one of them. Brand can't, because she doesn't like ever put herself in that position, and because she's like trying to work an angle for Orcus.
I do disagree a little bit there because I actually think that Brand would fit in really well with the Arakan people due to how Brand is always out for herself. She is always out for her survival and what she deems survival to be. Um, and she can put up a front that she's doing it for the entirety of the soul system, but it only matters if it's being done her way. And I think that that is a mindset that would work really well with the Arakan people, and she would rule with force like Genesis had, like the Council had in the past.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying she can't relate to them entirely. It's more that she just doesn't choose to, because she doesn't view herself really as something relatable to mutants in the first place. She always puts herself above them because, solar systems and not planets or people.
Mhm.
Okay, we're on to our next character. This is gonna be so fun. Magneto has like one of the like every line from Magneto in this book just makes me like smile, and it says he builds a palace in the middle of Arakko, and he meets with what I'm gonna call his new boyfriend to make Xavier jealous. So like he meets with this fisherman who there's like this back and forth between them, in which the fisherman explains how he like it's not clear if he's like human or if he just doesn't have mutant powers. It's not clear which of the two are. But he was like born within Arakko, and he was like a prisoner, and he fought within them, and he like that makes like both of them like makes him intertwine within Arakko culture, and also gives this like thing of like I fought with them, give a lot of like it makes Magneto and him like relate and bond over that. And there's like endless like super cool lines there over like how Magneto is trying to build the place where he's gonna spend the end of his life, where he's gonna die, his grave, and how he is gonna like accept the kind of like accept his pain or like work on himself, which is pretty cool. It's also pretty cool because mutants now don't die, so like it's not a grave in a literal like yeah, he's like he's like building his grave, but he's not gonna die. It's just like a metaphorical grave of like this is a place where I come to like rest and reflect and grow in a new way. And I'm so excited about it. What do you both think? Because I think I already like said my bit.
I'll go again if that's okay. Basically, I loved Magneto's thing here. It does follow up well on him just like giving up like after the Moira plot was exposed and Emma just like making sure he can never come back. So, and I think he wasn't being metaphorical. I think he was being literal because he's accomplished his goals, and for that he was cast out because he also betrayed the ideals of that society he built. So it makes sense he might be ashamed or just bitter enough to just want to like go out to Arakko and either retire or die, at least for me. And as far as like the fisherman thing, I love that character, if only because first because of like the whole monocle drop moment from Magneto where he's like, "You have no powers?" And just like in general it helps like put a pin on a pretty useful point in Arakko, which is like the difference between them and Krakoa and how they view being a mutant. For Krakoa, their mutant identity is tied up in having their powers. For the Arakko mutants, their mutant nature is just a weapon. It has little, if anything, to do with like who they are intrinsically. So it's like for the fisherman, being born with powers is not an obstacle to being who you are. It's just a matter of what tools you use. So I think he is human because the only thing he was arguing about was I'm not from Earth. So he's probably just human because mutants have had human kids before, like in canon anyway. But point being, like, Arakko in its way is more progressive than Krakoa because they don't have this like obsession with their powers in the way that Krakoa does, except for the Great Ring where you have to be an Omega. But I think that's just a matter of if you can beat up an Omega, you are an Omega. Because Storm did it with a knife. That's my thoughts on it anyway. I loved where Magneto's going, and I think he fits in well with like this alien culture that's a little more like, teeth and, fists than Krakoa is.
I gotta say, I also love that this character is called the Fisherman because it kind of like plays on this whole thing of like teach a man how to fish. Like it's kind of like a joke within the comic itself, and I love that. I love the detail that he's just a fisherman. He doesn't have like But what do you think, Gabriel?
It's a great thing.
When it comes to the fisherman, I too am a big fan. I think there was a lot more to him. I don't think that he's just someone who, like a human, someone born without powers. I think there is more, and it seemed too clean that this dude with no powers hasn't died, was born in the prisons, and I hope that if nothing else, he is used to give us a better window into the Arakan history. Because even back when they were first introduced in X of Swords, I was left very confused with who's a mutant, who's not a mutant, who's Amith, who's Arakan. Is there more options than just those two? And I would love it if they used the fisherman to give us this window into what it means to be Arakan in a more concrete way beyond just the culture. As far as Magneto goes, I was not a fan. I think Magneto was very, very Magneto in the entirety of this issue. But he was
Yeah.
very, very much Magneto in ways that I don't like Magneto. Magneto finally got what he spent his entire existence in comic books doing. A mutant nation that is doing better than the human nations, mutants above, mutants separated, and then things don't go his way and he throws a temper tantrum and storms off to his room, except his room is a whole different planet. It is such a huge drama queen Magneto thing to do, and it fits perfectly. And then he goes off, and not only does he go to this separate planet, he finds the most isolated place he can find on this planet, builds a castle, and monologues to a fisherman. It is so unbelievably, unnecessarily dramatic. No one but Magneto could pull it off. Like I really just want to be like, just sit down, Magneto. Like no one said he had to leave. Yes, there was a lot of shame in his lying, but they actively voted, and if he hadn't said to leave, that he was gonna leave, he wouldn't have gotten kicked out because it would have been a split vote with his vote. But he gave up his vote by leaving, so he got kicked out. So it was like going in to say I quit and instead getting fired and then getting upset you got fired. It was just sit down, Magneto. That being said, I think it was a great portrayal of Magneto. It's just me personally, I just wanted to shake him a little bit, be like, why? Why are you doing this? I'm gonna go. This is going to be my grave, though normally we can't die, but it will be my grave. It was just turn down the emo music, Magneto. It's okay.
Oh, man. He is a drama queen. You can't deny that.
No, and like I said, it's a great depiction of Magneto. Everything about it fit in his character, and I do think that Ewing's going to do this to kind of take us to a new era of Magneto. I did love the fact of his name. Like he's Magneto, he's Max, he's Eric, he's Headmaster.
How many names do you have?
Exactly, and it kind of did a quick rapid fire tour of who Magneto is, or who he has been rather, setting the stage for who he can be next. So I'm excited for that, but also I wanted to shake him so badly.
For me, it was like delightful to have a comic that had a scene in which like this random new character goes to Magneto and it's like, you want to talk about what's hurting you? And Magneto is like, yes, I'm gonna make a monologue and then I'm gonna build a fucking palace. Like, such a drama queen. We stand.
If nothing else, I want us to keep the fisherman, just ship him off to Krakoa, have him meet with the new X-Men, just a new ex-therapist that they desperately need.
Or hire Doc Samson. He's always on call.
I don't know. That never really worked out too well. I like Fisherman as the new ex-therapist. He'll fit in well.
He definitely can teach a man how to fish. Resist. Sorry.
Yeah. But like, I gotta say that like a thing that and this is gonna come up later, but I think that I really like about this book is that here we have like Magneto making this whole like monologue about how his vision, and he failed to like be up to the situation, and like he's retiring and all of that. And it's very, very like I can almost hear how Magneto will say this because it's very well done within his character. It's extremely Magneto. And I love that because sometimes a thing that I miss in some books is that there's more plot than characters, and here's like there's very, very little plot, but it's so fun.
Yeah,
The
the
plot-
characters' voices are definitely well defined. Like Ewing's always had a flair for that, where you can separate the characters and they don't all sound the same. Like they all have their own little quirks and all that. Like Sunspot at this point is basically an Ewing character.
Is that the transition to Sunspot?
Yeah.
Okay, this is the part I've been waiting for.
Same.
This is the part that when I got to it, I literally screamed out loud. Duna, did you want to intro Sunspot, or do I just dive in?
Go ahead.
Okay,
You're like
I'm so excited. I am a huge fan of Ewing Sunspot. When he wrote him in New Avengers and US Avengers, Sunspot was competent. He was a force. Dude took down an evil Reed Richards. Definitely read those two runs if you've not. It's not an X comic per se, but I've never seen Sunspot shine as much as he did in those pages. And after Sunspot in the Krakoan era has been a joke. He hires frog space lawyers and just thirsts after Deathbird and is just useless for the most part. And then we have Sunspot written by Ewing again, and he is exhibiting that confidence again, and actually backing it up some. He goes up against Vulcan, and he is immediately depowered within seconds. But the Sunspot isn't defined by his powers. He has been trained by Professor X, trained by Cable, trained by Magneto, and he is a competent fighter and strategist. And yeah, he doesn't win, but at least he goes up against Vulcan with some of that competence back in there that I've been desperate for. So excited to see where he's going next with this.
I gotta agree. Like, as much as I love Hickman's Sunspot, he's the one who made him an Avenger after all. But it's like the guy who defined Sunspot as an Avenger and as a leader is definitely Ewing. Like, the whole taking on evil Reed Richards thing. But he's definitely been relegated to the background and as comic relief, even by Hickman. So having him back in full force, like playing a master plan to take over Arakko or whatever. Because we all know, like, the Shi'ar, throne thing is still coming up. Ewing even brought it up himself. So I'm ready for that destiny to come up immediately. And I was screaming, like, just like you, like when he like gets depowered and still pounding on Vulcan. And it's like, yeah, he's gonna take on an Omega level mutant with his bare hands. Just watch him. And it's not something I read. I got to get to it at some point, but bringing back up his relationship with Magneto, like when he was the professor of the Xavier School, was pretty nice too. It's all those little relationships like that have like carried on for decades. That's kind of fallen by the wayside with Krakoa, so I'm kind of glad that like Ewing's been picking up on that, because it's like it'd be easy to just like ignore all of that, but it's like, okay, you've got Storm, who's been around Sunspot before, but then you've got Magneto, who actually taught him, and Cable, who led him as part of X-Force, and it's like, okay, what do you think's going to happen? And the one thing I'm glad for is Ewing picking up on just making Sunspot the Pete Davidson to Vulcan's Kanye. Of course, he would like be absolutely furious about like the Shi'ar Empire, but at some point he's going to bring back the fact that Sunspot's dating his ex-wife.
I don't know what's going on with those two, so I kind of would rather they didn't bring that up again. I kind of want the Sunspot Deathbird bit to die. But it would be a very interesting thing to bring up that I blacked out of my mind until you brought it up just now.
But you gotta admit, like, if you want drama in the X-Men, that
It's
is how
drama.
you do it.
It's drama.
And Vulcan, like, already, like, just automatically mad would just, like, go straight for Sunspot.
Vulcan's just mad in general. And Sunspot is the perfect person for him to aim it, and I'm really hoping we get a round 2 where Sunspot just beats his ass, because Vulcan has had near to no training and is just pure raw power. And up against Vulcan, Sunspot essentially has no power and pure training. And I think having him kind of show Vulcan which side wins will be amazing.
Yeah, definitely I'm ready for that round 2.
And even more than that, what I am looking forward to is Sunspot versus Brand. Brand has shown that she has wheels upon wheels upon wheels with plans upon plans upon plans. And Sunspot, of all people, as he should be, is the one who so quickly saw through that she is up to something.
That was the best part, because it's like he arrives in like 5 minutes, he's already taken over the Red Lagoon and he's already sussed out that Brand is up to something. He doesn't even really need to read that hard. It's like, wait, what? It is great, because it's like, unlike most of like the others, it's like Sunspot's been an Avenger and he's led them. So it makes sense that he'd have like the confidence to like back up himself. Like, he's not a kid anymore, and I'm kind of glad we're getting away from that.
It's definitely a more mature, grown into himself version of Sunspot. And I think that putting him on equal footing with Magneto and Storm, two of the most iconic X-Men to exist, is perfect for the next era of Sunspot.
Yeah, that's definitely been my fear, because when Cannonball and Sunspot got wheeled back into the X-Men line, because you can stand out in the Avengers pretty easily. It doesn't require that much effort as long as you're front and center. Like, you could do it for Luke Cage, you could do it for Captain Marvel, and then you did it for Sunspot and Cannonball. But it's like, when you're in the X-Men, you tend to disappear, like, if someone isn't fronting you. So I'm just glad, like, Sunspot's like back on equal footing again, instead of being in like the New Mutants like reunion photo. That's my thought anyway.
I'm with you.
Yeah, same. I'm I'm so excited about Roberto in this book, like especially because like the first, like same as you both, I also jump like and smile a lot at the first lines, being like, "We're gonna bring disco to Arakko." I was like, "Yeah, that's such a Roberto idea," and and also that he has like I appreciate I appreciate this of Ewing's books in general, but I appreciate that Roberto is having a conversation with this Arakko, this Arakan like character, and he like casually talks about his. I'm not sure if it was his boyfriend or his dead one. Like
his dead boyfriend.
His dead
Yeah.
boyfriend. Yeah. Okay. So he casually talks about his dead boyfriend. So there's like this bit of queerness there, which I was like, yes, please. And also like, especially with the character of Roberto, because you all know my headcanon already. Like, Roberto is bisexual. We're gonna get it at some point. I'm trusting Ewing on this. And also like, I really love, and Cecile mentioned this before. I really, really love the fact that when he enters into Magneto's palace, Magneto is like, took your shirt.
Took your shirt in.
That's such like little line to like make you understand the relationship between these characters, and it goes so well to like so the kind of paternal relationships between Magneto and the New Mutants in general, but Roberto in particular in this scene. And that's I always love Magneto as a dad. Like that's
He's in the Professor Xavier school where he's a better dad to everyone but his own kids. Like you gotta love it.
yeah, I don't love him as a literal dad, but like as a metaphorical dad, he rules. But anyway, so like, and there's also like that line of took your sharing that the next line is something like, "Have you been fighting?" And it's just hilarious to me, and also like I really like how Roberto in this book is like all bravado. Like he's like fully ready to get in trouble every time. And I just love that. I feel like that's a very like Roberto scene from the
Yes.
beginning, but here is like in its maximum expression.
And he can back it up again. That is the
Yeah.
big thing for me, is that he's not just talking out his ass. Like, he has skill, he has smart, and he is able and willing to show it, and it makes me so happy.
Same. He feels like a Sam Spade type character thing because I do. One thing I forgot to mention is how much I love that like X-Men Red actually goes out of its way to define Arakko as a place beyond like vaguely like brown or black savagey mutants. Like they're characters with their own rich atmosphere, their own culture, and like the Green Lagoon as this sort of hangout. I love it, and Roberto like playing like a Sam Spade detective role in addition to like the master planner type feels like a good fit for him, especially with the outfit he's wearing in the issue.
Suited Roberto is my favorite costume for him. I don't want him in a uniform. I want him always in a suit, like he spent most of U.S. Avengers. It's how he always is in my head. But like with what you were saying, I love how X-Men Red does start taking Arakan mutants and giving us more time with them. Like the Fisherman, like Kobach never held, the guy who Roberto was talking to him in the bar, and he's giving them backstories and fleshing them out. And I want to see more of that. Because a lot of the Arokans, aside from Iska that we've met so far, have just been like plot devices. Like there are six other people on that council aside from Iskar and Chan and Storm, and gun to my head, I can't tell you anything about any of them. Someone's missing a tongue, then I only know that because a data page said that. Because we're not given enough time to sit with the characters, and I think we're finally starting to get that. Um, I would love to see the council more and seeing their vote rather than just, hey, here's a data page of how they voted. Um, to kind of give it more connection. And I think we will get there.
I do like how have you both read Dune?
Me, yes.
Yeah. I won't go too deep into it because I don't want to be unfair to people who haven't like read it, but it's like it feels like Ewing's leaning in on those Dune influences a lot more than Hickman did in terms of like how he's defining the Arakai mutants, in that
Hmm.
they're very like utilitarian, both with their mutant powers and their culture and their honor. Like the whole thing where Kolbak won't interfere with Sunspot's fight with Vulcan because I'm not gonna humiliate a dude I just met by like winning his fight for him. And I do like that because it just like it gives like, okay, what is the texture to these characters beyond like they believe in strength. Like you have to actually give them personality and culture because otherwise they're just like the other mutant island. So I've just been like enjoying myself here.
Yeah.
And kind of going back to what you had said earlier, Duna, about the queer potential in X-Men Red and how Ewing has handled it. Um, I definitely want to direct people to, if you haven't read it, check out the most recent one of Guardians of the Galaxy, because Ewing had definitely taken characters in the direction of queer, and I think he took it as far as probably editorial will let him, since they are some pretty big name characters. Um, and I would love to see him do more of that in the X-Men, because the X-Men need it. We need on the panel. It's the X-Men. They're supposed to be gay. Just accept it,
Yeah,
people.
yeah. I don't need Claremontian subtext. Give me the real thing. Like for me at least, like Guardians was like half of the team, or a third at least, were like on panel queer. So it's like at this point you can throw a few X-Men into the bonfire.
Yeah.
Cable.
I mean,
I mean, Deadpool does exist. I mean, it's been all but said. Just make it happen.
Didn't they already confirm it with Deadpool? Like
I
I
think
think they've
I
said
don't
he's
know if
like
they've.
canon.
Canon is canon pansexual, but like him and Deadpool and him and Cable were dating for years. Let's just put it on panel.
He did like try to save Deadpool's life during Messiah Complex.
Exactly.
There's an argument.
yeah.
He's ready to go.
And I'm just saying, like, the three titular characters on this book are Aurora, Eric, and Roberto. And all three of them are Claremontian subtext for hours. So, like,
I think Ewing will do what he can at the very least. Like he's never been gun shy about it. This is the dude who made Loki like gender fluid.
yeah,
I'm willing to cut him slack.
yeah, exactly. Like,
I'm just saying that we look at the cast of the characters and look at the scenes in this book, and I don't think I'm going to be the only person who read a lot of tension into that scene between Storm and Iska. I'm just saying that is a ready girlfriend, power couple, both on the council. Just saying, it will be great. Come on, Ewan, let's do this.
yeah, that would be amazing. Okay, so talking about Queer Storm, the last panel.
Oh God.
The end of this season is like the best for me. It's like the best possible end ever. Like it ends with a bang. Especially because we're sold this book as X-Men Red, so like this is gonna be the X-Men team, and then the issue ends with like a Storm being like, no, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go against whatever it is Abigail Brand's plan, and we're gonna be the Brotherhood. And here it really made sense. It really clicked. It really it was very good. And I'm gonna be bitter about it. It was very good in contrast to, for example, Marauders. like in contrast to that name in that book, it didn't make a lot of sense. It wasn't like strong. It was like
the relaunch or the first one? I'm confused.
The first one. I'm not. The name, like the reason for the name.
Yeah. Not the book,
okay,
but the
okay.
naming.
I got you.
Yeah.
The Krakoan era has definitely been reclaiming and adjusting names. You had the Marauders, you had the Fallen Angels, you have the Hellions, and none of them mean what they have meant in the comics before. And we're getting that a little bit with the Brotherhood, but it also makes sense. It's a connection to what it once was, because if you have the X-Men, and now the X-Men are going to be the bad guys, who's going to stand up to the X-Men? Obviously, it's the Brotherhood, like Storm said. And I love that transition, and I'm excited.
And the look, just the look, like
it's a great update of the punk look.
Yeah, that panel, I was like, wow.
I will say I did love, like, you know what we're gonna do if Brand can take the X-Men and do a dark X-Men spin? We can do the Brotherhood of Not So Evil Mutants. No, but it does work. And wait, are we going to be going into the X-Men thing? Because I did have thoughts about that.
The X-Men thing?
Like Brand basically trying to reappropriate the X-Men name.
Yeah.
Yes, go for it.
All right. Well, basically, like, I did enjoy that because I'll be honest, we love making the Avengers or cops jokes, but the X-Men have always been 1,000% more like cops within the mutant community, especially like if you're outside their circle, like the Morlocks. Like they've always been like the self-policing kind of characters. So it's Brand kind of taking that really unhealthy subtext to its natural conclusion by like trying to pervert the X-Men name to her own ends. So I do love the idea that Storm is like, no, if we're going to stand for Arakko, if we're going to fight for them, we can't like present something that doesn't represent who they are. We're going to be the Brotherhood. And it's a great splash page to end on.
Yeah, I like all of the book is like it's really character focused. It's really hitting its points, but the end is like, yes, like I'm in for whatever's next.
What I am most intrigued about is who is going to be the X-Men and who is going to be the Brotherhood. I think that we did get pointed very clearly with Vulcan and Thunderbird. Thunderbird is absolutely going to be a Brotherhood member, while Vulcan is absolutely going to be an X-Men member. I have no doubt about that. What I am more curious about is who else is going to be filling the roster. I believe that when Storm burst in, she refers to them and she's pretty much being like, the three of you are going to be joining me. So she's automatically including the fisherman in as well, which is a big vote of confidence for some old man who's chit-chatting with Magneto, but okay. But it also does show what I'm hoping is going to happen, and that aside from Magneto, Storm, and Sunspot and Thunderbird, the Brotherhood are going to be Arakko mutants that we get to meet.
I think that's going to be the case because part of what Storm's like, struggle through in this issue is her like becoming to resent how she came to be Regent of Soul, because she's put herself above these mutants she wants to live alongside, and to the point that she even destroys the throne. No more thrones. So it for me at least. I think the Brotherhood is going to be mostly Arakko mutants. It wouldn't make much sense if they didn't have a presence, given that this is an attempt to like self-determine for themselves instead of having Brand from on high telling them what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious if like, because we don't know anything about who are gonna be the X-Men, but I'm curious if some of the characters from S.W.O.R.D are gonna like be pick up on. I would be curious if WizKid is there, which could be kind of because like WizKid, like how S.W.O.R.D ended, WizKid is not like fully aware of everything that is happening with Brand, so that would be interesting.
I don't think you would like Arakko very much, because they did show that a lot of his monologue isn't actually a lie. He does sort of resent like parts of Krakoa, like welcoming Apocalypse and Mr. Sinister. So I don't think he'd be too cool with Arakko. So it seems like he and Brand are on good terms, so it feels like he would be an in-story diversity pick for Brand, since she wants to present the best possible face for her plans, and everybody loves WizKid. I love WizKid.
Yeah.
I do love WizKid, but I actually think that he would be a bad pick for Brand, simply because I don't see WizKid being the model that Brand is saying that she wants the X-Men to be, because WizKid won't like the Orokin people. The Orokin people won't like WizKid. I don't see him being that good of a pick. Alternatively, I do see Frenzy being the perfect person for Brand to put on her team.
Yeah,
she's been an X-Man before.
Yep.
Definitely not Cable, because she doesn't seem to want Cable anywhere near her real plans.
Well, she kind of cut down Cable's power level a lot before the ending of S.W.O.R.D, while also kind of gaining his trust a little. Like, and he already has shown up to reclaim Vulcan. It's just a matter of if she's going to feel he has enough use versus how much risk having someone like Cable on her team would be.
True. Yeah, she definitely did do her best to ingratiate herself with him. Maybe Manifold?
Manifold is badass, and I want more Manifold. I don't care where, just somewhere. And it would also be very interesting if you have Manifold on one side with Sunspot on the other, since they were Avengers together.
Manifold's also not actually an X-Man, so having him be on like the fake X-Men team would be funny, at least for me. I don't know. He doesn't seem to really know what Brand is, so it seems like he would like be this seems like a good use of my time helping Arakko, only, actually not.
Yeah.
I can't think of anyone else though, because because I was going to joke and say Mentalo, but I don't see that even being a possibility in the story.
Yeah. I'm excited. What is there anything any of you both are also excited about the next issues? I'm like fully in with this book. I read the issue and I was like, we're doing a show on this. Like I was like, yeah.
I'm excited for at least like building out the Arakko culture, because that's one of the things that I've been like waiting 2 years for to actually happen. And then it's like, oh, finally, the book built, exactly to appeal to me, with one of my favorite, Avengers, X-Men, whatever characters. And then like Magneto, Storm, Brand. And then on top of that, I'm also actually excited for the AVE tie-in. Sorry, the Judgment Day one. I can never remember the full name, but let's just go with Judgment Day. Like, I'm ready for that tie-in.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
Honestly, I'm just Sunspot's a major player again, and he is acting like a major player, and I'm just that's all I need, to be honest. The rest is just bonus. But I also do want to meet more Arakan mutants. Like we saw Cora, what was her name? The woman with the
Core of the Burning Heart.
That's the one. We've seen her, but even then, even though she joined S.W.O.R.D, I don't feel like we got too much to actually get to know her. So right now, the only Arakan mutants that I think we've gotten to know really is Tarn and Iska, and I this entire island, give me someone.
Now you've got a fisherman.
And Fisherman.
Yeah, I'm also just excited, like, because I love these characters and I love what Ewing has done with them in this first issue. I also I really like the art as well. I'm just like really enjoying the vibe of this book. So I just hope, like, my only hope for this book is to continue to be as much character focused, because I love when books don't like rush to plot threads, and I'm just like waiting, like wanting more of what we had in this first issue, like wanting more of the characters, like I don't know. I'm just happy to see them interact. I'm just happy. I like that last scene with Sunspot and Magneto and Storm, all like getting together for this thing was like super great for me, because I was like, yes, that's the kind of a story that I want to read. A story in which like the motivations of the characters so really well, like fit them really well, and I just love them. Gabriel, I love Magneto.
Like you said, it's very much these are the characters and what the characters are going through, and including Brandon. That you take Brand, Magneto, Storm, and Sunspot, you put them all on the planet, and this is the plot that is growing out of the characters, instead of which we do see a lot of, which is here's the plot I have, and I guess this is what the characters are going to do when they're put in that plot. It's definitely putting characters first, and I love it. It makes it so much easier to connect and immerse into the story.
It definitely feels like the weight of the character's history is actually in play, because like you have Storm's like entire like relationship with Thrones and Wandering on display. You have Magneto just coming off fresh from his humiliation in Immortal X-Men and Inferno, plus his relationship with Sunspot. You even have Cable's relationship with Vulcan like brought up, like that's his uncle. And then like Thunderbird acting the entire way he does, because naturally he resents the Summers family and like everyone else who's ever come in contact with his little brother, and Brand like playing around with everyone else. So it feels like there's a web, and you can see where those character relationships integrate. it doesn't feel as decentralized as some of the other X-Men books are with, these characters and their relationships with one another.
It's very organic. It's working well together. It's not like, why are you guys on a team together? It works. And that line from Thunderbird to Cable, pretty much where it's like, fuck you, fuck Xavier, fuck Frost, fuck all of y'all. It was perfect.
Makes sense. He would resent these people for what they did, because if you look at it from his perspective, everything that's happened since has been a corruption arc for his little brother.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thunderbird was great here. I just hope we get like more Thunderbird.
Sincerely,
Like we're gonna get a giant size Thunderbird coming very soon. So like we're gonna get more Thunderbird, but
I gotta say, I wasn't really for bringing him back, because he's like one of the original X-Men deaths. So it feels like, okay, what is there to say? Then he shows up and punches into next week, and it's like, okay, I take back everything I ever said.
yeah. So I think we cover everything. It's like, yeah, I think we cover everything. We're really excited about this book. I'm pretty sure that we're gonna do another show on the book, like when it's more developed, when we have like more time to like taste whatever is happening here, and I'll message you then, Cecile, to have you back. But whenever that is, in some few months or something like that, because like this is a great book, and props to the people for making it.
Now, they did a great job. I'm excited for the next issue. Only 3 more weeks.
Yeah, only 2 more weeks. Okay, so thank you so much, Celeste, for coming to the show. And yeah, thank you so much. We're excited to have you back whenever. Like, we already talked about this, so probably sometime when Sabertooth ends, it's also a good moment, because that's a series. I'm fully loving it, and yeah. And
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we'll see you all soon, and bye.